At exactly 3:10 a.m., 21st September 2025, a Ukrainian Bayraktar TB2 reconnaissance drone had locked onto a distinct, deep origin signal inside enemy territory. A dual heat signature appeared, clear and sharp. The AI targeting suite auto-flagged it. Two Russian Mi-8AMTSh helicopters, each valued at roughly $16 million, had just touched down at an airbase on the Crimean Peninsula. In the underground UAV operations room in Zaporizhzhia, the sensor crew went nearly silent. Tension climbed. "Opportunity!" someone breathed. One precise strike, and it would not be just two helicopters. The entire local supply chain would be crippled. Both Mi-8s had completed a flight of nearly 2 hours, carrying over 60 troops and their kit away from the front. On touchdown, they were driven straight into the technical area for routine maintenance and refueling. On the ramp, the mood was relaxed. Officers sloughed off flight suits and gloves, laughed aloud, poured a few plastic cups of vodka, and toasted a flawless sortie. They did not know that the flight they treated as routine was the breadcrumb that would give Ukraine the base's exact coordinates. Like the sugar cube and the ant game, Ukraine needed one sugar cube to lure the ant home, then burn the whole nest. At 3:20 a.m., minutes after the two Mi-8s landed, screens at the Gur command center in Zaporizhzhia began to flash. Commercial infrared satellite imagery had captured the heat signature on the ramp where aircraft engines were still glowing hot. A Bayraktar TB2, reconnaissance UAV patrolling outside the corridor, was retasked immediately. It descended to 1,650 feet, skimmed the terrain, and slipped into the blind sector that Nebo-U and Podlet K1 could not cover. Its composite airframe made its radar return resemble a small bird. It was nearly invisible on the enemy's scopes. Its electro-optical and infrared sensors traced the residual engine heat from the Mi-8s. Video relayed to the UAV command in Zaporizhzhia showed the truth. This was no temporary parking strip. At least two Mi-8s were staged for redeployment. Two B-12 served maritime reconnaissance. Behind them sat a cluster of Nebo-U antennas capable of detecting low observable aircraft and tracking hundreds of targets at once. Human intelligence reported hundreds of tons of fuel and ammunition in the hangars and storage yards, enough to sustain continuous air operations, prolong pressure on Ukraine's defenses, and keep lines of supply open. If the base were neutralized, the enemy would lose a critical node. A strategic blind spot would open. Early warning capability would be degraded, the logistics chain would fracture, air defense effectiveness would fall, and pathways would open for follow-on Ukrainian strikes. The Ghost Special Task Unit moved at once. They escalated from surveillance to a 3-layered strike plan. A UAV formation that had been covertly deployed for nearly 2 hours received the order to change course and enter the final corridor. At 3:25 a.m., the formation was now less than 25 miles from the target. Leading were two UJ-22 airborne decoy UAVs flying at 985 feet with a cruise speed of about 100 miles per hour. They were unarmed. Their sole job was to emit strong signals and jam the 2.4 GHz and 5.8 GHz bands. With carbon fiber skins and larger than normal airframes, they did not hide from the enemy radar. They were built to be the first targets. Exactly 656 feet behind them, three LUTAN-196 attack UAVs followed as the main strike. They flew lower at approximately 490 feet, maintaining cruise speeds of 112 to 124 miles per hour. Each carried a 165-pound shaped charge warhead. The formation flew in an arrow formation. They emitted no signals. All guidance ran on an internal navigation suite, fully GPS independent. The objective was the military airbase in Crimea. Coordinates had been confirmed less than 5 minutes earlier. From launch, the formation sent no control traffic on open bands. Every move matched the rehearsal script to the second. At 3:27 a.m., the two UJ-22 decoys penetrated the first air defense recognition zone. A Podlet K-1 station more than 12.5 miles from the airfield began to pick up anomalous contacts in the mid-altitude layer. Warning indicators started flashing. Radar operators increased scan frequency. The Nebo-U switched to active mode. High-frequency cones began sweeping in widening arcs. The UJ-22 signatures sharpened. On the Podlet K-1 control display, 2 unknown targets appeared repeatedly at 900 to 1,000 feet altitude, about 11.5 miles from the airfield, closing fast. Unknown response code. The alert station's initial assessment, a loitering or reconnaissance kamikaze UAV preparing to strike. The local air defense commander ordered Condition 1 immediately. The Nebo-U turned hard and switched to high-rate scanning. A Pantsir S-1 battery on the airfield's eastern perimeter went live. 2 57E6 rounds were launched at once. It took 14 seconds to intercept. 2 flashes lit the sky. Fireballs bloomed. UAV wreckage hit open ground less than 1,650 feet from the airfield fence. A duty officer in the command cabin reported, "Clear, both neutralized." Air defenses dropped to temporary alert level. Podlet reverted to routine patrol mode. Nebo-U kept sweeping but throttled back scan frequency on the southeast axis. None of them knew the real phase of the operation had only just begun. At 3:30 minutes and 42 seconds a.m., as the Nebo-U swung its beam northwest, the 3 AN-196s pressed deeper toward the base. The lead aircraft made a shallow 10-degree break off the original axis. The 2 wing elements held formation and cut altitude below 330 feet, skimming the low tree line on the base's southern edge. All 3 slipped into the gap that had opened between radar sweeps, while the air defense units recalibrated after the first volley. The maneuver was pre-calculated to route through the intersecting nulls of 2 sweep arcs. A razor-thin window created by fragmented side lobes. It was just wide enough to transit and exit before Russian radars could relock. This is radar evasion craftsmanship. It has allowed Ukrainian UAVs to reach Moscow, Kazan, and as far as Astrakhan on the Caspian shore. While the Pantsir crews re-zeroed after the initial shots, the dagger tip had already pierced the outer defensive layer. Distance to the base fell below 10 miles. At current cruise speeds, the formation would reach the target in under 5 minutes. From this point, every flight control input exploited beam rotation timing and the Pantsir S-1 reaction lag after engaging the decoys. 2 minutes later, the 3 UAVs entered the attack corridor together. Range coordinator confirmed. Liuchi units have entered the attack corridor. Lock heading, Crimea base, Mi-8 cluster, B-12s, Nebo-U. Infrared on the control screens showed it clearly. 2 Mi-8s parked exposed, 2 B-12s at the hangar edge, the radar cluster uncamouflaged. The airfield had not yet grasped the true threat. It was at their feet, ground-hugging, and locking 3 lethal nodes. At 3:33 minutes and 45 seconds a.m., Nebo-U registered a faint return at ultra-low altitude. A dim heat band appeared on the screen edge. The sector coordinator warned, "Low-level contact, accelerating." Alert level 2 triggered too late. Inside the control center, Ukrainian engineers armed the final dive mode. Automatic terminal dives locked to the pre-designated aim points. All 3 Liuti accelerated into terminal run. Their final sprint reached 145 to 155 miles per hour. With fuselage length about 5 feet and wingspan 7 feet, and a carbon composite frame to cut weight and radar cross-section, these UAVs are optimized for surprise strikes where a single hit can trigger cascading destruction. 30 seconds later, Liuti-1 began a pull-up to 600 feet. Target, the Mi-8 cluster on the west ramp, still exposed. Liuti-2 peeled off the formation, banked 15 degrees left, and locked on the Nebo-U antenna. Thermal data showed the 45-foot antenna array rotating slowly with no intercept vector declared. Liuti-3 held course and locked on the 2 B-12s parked side by side at the east ramp near maintenance and refueling trucks. Behind those objective nodes lay an expeditionary fuel dump with over 1,100,000 pounds of aviation fuel and distributed ammunition caches laid out for dispersed operations. Countdown: 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, the blast. The clock read 3:35 minutes and 23 seconds a.m. Liuti-1 approached on a 26-degree angle and slammed into the Mi-8AMTSH's engine bay while the helicopter was under maintenance. The impact flashed white, then detonated into a fireball over 330 feet high that lit the entire base instantly. The shaped charge blast and the Mi-8's secondary explosion cooked the surrounding fuel drums. Peak overpressure exceeded 50 pounds per square inch. The blast propagated into Mi-8 No. 2, parked 15 feet away. Both Mi-8s were shredded, fuselage sections ripped apart. Rotor blades flew more than 230 feet, landing on an adjacent hangar roof. A refuel truck was hurled away. Fires spread violently. 0.8 seconds later, Liuti-3 struck the right-hand B-12. The B-12's airframe tore open. Debris punctured the auxiliary fuel bunker. The second B-12 ignited in the ensuing chain explosion. Flames leapt from wing to fuselage and into the maintenance bay. At 3:35 minutes and 27 a.m., Liuti-2, with surgical precision, drove straight into the Nebo-U main antenna array. A dry, violent detonation ripped the night apart. Russia's eye was neutralized. The radar collapsed into a burning heap of twisted metal. The concussion echoed across a radius greater than 12.5 miles. Locals later said they thought an earthquake struck. Warehouse windows inside 1,970 feet shattered. The ramp became a torch. The covert airbase turned into an inferno. Commercial IR satellites showed a thermal bloom over 1,320 feet at the Crimea command site. At 3:36 minutes a.m., Russia's UHF net sent its last message. Base under attack, radar damaged, aircraft damaged, requesting immediate assistance. Then silence. In under 7 minutes, the strategic airbase in Crimea lost all defensive and air control capability and burned out. From radar to the Mi-8 cluster, the entire west ramp was incinerated. Fires climbed high. Black smoke trailed for hundreds of meters. Blast pressure extended into warehouses nearly 1,970 feet away. Within 2 minutes of the impacts, at least 7 secondary detonations occurred: fuel burns and pool fires, serial detonations in B-12 munitions bunkers, a backup command vehicle destroyed by blast overpressure. At 4:15 a.m., commercial IR satellites logged a high-intensity hotspot in West Crimea with a luminous area exceeding 350 square meters. Telegram clips from Jankoy residents circulated showing large night fires, hot metal fragments raining on roofs, and military police sealing the scene. Maxar imagery on the morning of 21st September showed the damage plainly. 3 Mi-8s charred to frames. 1 B-12 mangled beyond recognition. Nebo-U radar collapsed, its antenna broken and inert. Ramp blackened across more than 984 feet. Debris, scorch marks, and smoke plumes visible from orbit. Estimated damage exceeded $180 million. The base lost 100% of its helicopter lift, its primary early warning radar, expeditionary fuel stocks, and ammunition. Logistical operations halted. Strategic effect for Ukraine, decisive. This base was not a generic staging strip. It was one of the few remaining expeditionary airfields in central Crimea. Russia used it to redeploy attack helicopters, operate B-12 maritime patrols, and run resupply flights to forward hubs in Kherson and Jankoy, critical nodes in the operational logistics chain. With the base neutralized, Moscow must rework southern logistics. Cargo flights will reroute further away. Transit times increase. Detectability rises. Jankoy's air defense radar no longer has compensating coverage, creating a 90-kilometer blind sector to the west that Ukraine can exploit in follow-on operations. Ukraine forced Russian defenses to move, disperse, and reveal gaps, Each such response creates new targeting options for GUR and Ukraine's UAV forces. Moscow's Ministry of Defense remained silent for hours. Telegram channels posted vague lines. A technical fire occurred in Crimea, cause under investigation. OSINT analysts quickly verified coordinates with thermal imagery. The struck area was exposed in before and after mosaics. The once hidden base coordinates were now fully revealed. Operation Ghost was not merely a UAV strike, it was a preemptive, punitive blow that shattered a key defensive node in Crimea. The Nebo-U's removal erased early warning on the northwest axis of the peninsula. The Mi-8 lift cluster used for troop redeployments and fast assault was knocked out. The B-12 maritime reconnaissance capability was degraded. Fuel and ammunition caches were destroyed, grounding Jankoy air activity for 48 hours. Immediately after the strike, Russia was forced to seal off the base perimeter, deploy additional Podlet K-1 air defense assets, suspend all low-level flight operations in the area. With 3 low-flying UAVs, Ukraine turned an invulnerable base into rubble. The message was clear: in modern war, timing and tactics can outweigh expensive kit.